I'm so blessed to coach some of the most amazing people in the entire world, and I wanted to share this quick video with you. It's a video about one of our students who joined our 12 Months to Financial Freedom University program, then upgraded and went to our Inner Circle program, and then rapid fire got 6 co-living homes in what felt like 6 months. He's going to tell you a little bit about his story and how he scaled so quickly, some of the keys to his success, and his experience in these different programs. Now, what I love about Seth is Seth joined our program, and I got to be honest, I thought he was a little bit slow. And if you're in this real estate journey and you feel like it's just going a little slow, you're not alone, right? Real estate takes time. And frankly, it should take a little bit of time. You want to do it right. And so, Seth joined this program. This program is 12 months long. And I think he spent the first 8 months of a 12-month program traveling around, figuring out where in the world is the best city for co-living. He'll share a little bit about his experience in this video. He really just went deep. He put some spreadsheets together. He researched different towns. He flew to those towns, met with me, met with realtors, met with property managers to figure out, okay, he lives in LA. So he lives in LA, but he doesn't want to invest in LA. Where in the world should he invest, or really in the United States, should he invest in co-living? This is a little video from one of our 5-day co-living real estate challenges. I brought Seth on to share his story. And so you're going to hear a little bit from Seth and one of the co-hosts, Corey, who many of you following this channel know him as well. So check out this video, get some inspiration, take some nuggets away, and share it with somebody that you think needs to hear this information. Seth, man, I'd love for you to tell people, I was kind of talking about you earlier, and I was kind of sharing your journey in our program and how you were kind of the slow burn from the beginning. So I'd love for you just to tell everybody a little bit about you, maybe how you started, why co-living for you, why co-living was an intriguing strategy for you, and also just kind of share a little bit about that slow burn and how you used that time to find different markets in the United States. I was kind of just sharing that piece of your story, and I think people found it really fascinating. And I'd love for you to share that, or whatever you'd love to share there, Seth, would be awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, good to be here. So my journey started, my wife and I had $200,000 in student loan debt. So that's the start of our journey, right? And then we finished that chapter. And then it was like, all right, well, now it's in wealth building mode. So what's next for us? And we started investing in single family properties and small multifamily properties, and just looking for ways of growing our wealth in that way. And it was working fine. I was investing out of state in Oklahoma, where I grew up. And it was kind of, I like to think of it as like nice seeds of wealth for the future, right? It was very low cash flow assets, but someone paying off a property for the future. And then my wife and I got to a point where we were like, you know what, this is great, but how can we move the needle a little more in our cash flow right now in this season? And so we had looked into Airbnb, and we looked at some different options. And my wife happened to stumble across Sam on the Bigger Pockets podcast talking about living. And it was just like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for, in the sense that here's a way that we can accelerate cash flow now, but maybe without some of the volatility of Airbnb, and the need for affordable housing isn't going anywhere. And so we found ourselves kind of at this perfect point where I guess every time I had never joined a mastermind in my life. I'm pretty risk averse. I like to think through all my decisions. My wife's the same way. But it was just perfect timing where we came across Sam and his program, and it was like, hey, we could either stumble our way through this asset class like we have with single family and with apartments, or we could hit the fast forward button with Sam and stand on the shoulders of his 10 years of experience. And so that's what led us into joining the mastermind. And then fast forward 10 months into the program, after a lot of deliberation with markets and everything, we purchased 5 properties in about a 10-month period.
Thanks for sharing all of that of your story. Tell us a little bit about that 10 months that you kind of deliberated, if you don't mind, just for a minute. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. And again, I just want to take a few minutes of your time here, but what was your thought process as you were going through that 10 months? How were you thinking about different markets? I kind of build you up, Seth, and I know you know this, and I know you've helped a lot of people in our program. Seth is now a coach for us, which is really cool, and he helps people he helps people in a lot of different ways. But one of the things that I kind of point people to Seth for is, okay, where is best for you to do this? Where is best for someone to pick, and as we call it, kind of plant your flag and make this your area? So before I kind of ask you some of the final questions, I'd love for you to just share kind of like your thought process on that and how you did that. And I know you even flew out to some different markets and just what your actions were during that time where you were really kind of honing in before, then you locked in and you went crazy fast and bought a home every 2 months for 10 months.
Yeah. So I was going through the program. I took Sam's advice early on of, being okay with pacing myself, right? I wanted to learn the content. I wanted to just absorb the modules, learn, join the live Q&A, like just soak it up for the first few months. That's kind of how I'm wired anyway, right? I just wanted to learn, figure out what exactly I'm getting myself into in detail. On the way, I started thinking, well, I'm based in Los Angeles. So I was considering that as a market. I had active investments in Oklahoma City. I've done some investing in Arizona. So I was kind of considering all these markets where I already had a footprint. And LA is very expensive. And I actually I would do Los Angeles now, but at the time it's a high barrier of entry. There's some different things. Oklahoma City, I looked at because I have properties there, but it's still relatively affordable in Oklahoma City. It's not, co-living isn't like solving a need like it is in some other cities. And then, like Sam said, I visited Nashville, Austin, in person, Nashville, Austin, Dallas, Charlotte, and I think I even had a trip to Phoenix, Corey, at sometime during that season. And as I was going through it, I'm thinking of like, well, I want wherever I kind of plant my flag, I want to get a portfolio there. I want to focus there so that as we're building out the operations of management, like I want to have the economies of scale with 1, 2, 5, 6 properties. So I was really trying to be selective at what market I picked. I wanted it to be a high demand, right? If I have a house coming for rent, I don't want to be in kind of a rural area, even if it's in Los Angeles. If I go out rural an hour outside of Los Angeles, it's going to be tough to fill that room. And so I wanted to be in a place, in a market where it's that thing that I'm putting for sale, right? For those customers, it's in high demand. For $700, $800, $900, whatever the number is, it's a high demand asset that I'm turning. So that was really important to me. And then, I was just looking at for kind of the sweet spot of these different markets where, all the things that Sam and Corey have probably been talking about this week, which is, where are there states and cities and areas where there's kind of a pathway of progress where co-living is going to be, favorably accepted by the city. I'm kind of looking at all those factors. So after all that, I ended up deciding to invest initially with Sam in Charlotte, and ended up going through the inner circle route just because for me, and Corey and Sam can speak to this as well, very well. Like how your property is managed is going to make or break your success with co-living. I can speak from experience. I've bought and rehabbed and rented out a lot of houses. Like a lot of people can do that. There's a lot of courses for that. What really sets this apart is with co-living is your systems and how your co-living asset is going to be managed for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years. And so that's why when we were deciding, Charlotte really ended up standing out for me because I knew across the country, there's not many better operators than Sam Wiegert for managing a co-living asset. And so that was very appealing for me as a starting point. And now, sure, 2 years later, you've got your Coreys and we've got connections in Dallas and Denver and all these different places. But as you're thinking about this, whether you're going to self-manage or not, it's important to realize that the management piece is going to end up being key, whether you're doing that yourself or finding someone that you trust to do that.
Guys, was that cool to just get inside of his brain for a minute and think about how he thinks about those how he thinks about like the markets and things like that? Corey, I know this question comes up, and I want to just ask this one chance real fast. What are maybe the top, just kind of rapid fire, what are maybe the top couple things you would want someone to think about before they get a market? And you mentioned 2 huge ones already. If you guys didn't catch it, he mentioned what's the demand, right? He goes, I want to be in a high demand market. I don't want to be in an area that's too cheap where it's not really solving a big issue. That was huge. I hope you took that away from what he shared. And I also want you to, he also said, hey, where can I operate it? Where can I know I can operate this thing? Is there anything else you'd add to that, Corey? Maybe 1 or 2 other things on like things people should be processing before they lock in on a market. And by the way, I agree with you. I think those 2 things that you just mentioned are probably the top 2, right? But
yeah,
is there anything?
Those are by far the top 2. If you don't have those 2, then it's going to be a nightmare no matter what. However, it really, like, I would say smaller metropolitan areas where price points of houses are still relatively okay, but demand for rent is high. So if you put in like top 10 rental markets, most of them aren't Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. They're mostly like Charlotte, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, Fort Lauderdale, those markets. But really, those two are the big ones. Make sure you have somebody there that can operate it, and those two are definitely the key.
Yeah, that's awesome. Seth, anything you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think there's I think one thing that's a helpful starting point is there's certain markets where if you just Googled top real estate investment markets in the country, right? That kind of gives you some darts on the map, right? And you'll see Charlotte and Austin and Nashville and all these places. And then you can kind of say, all right, well, that's a great market, but I have zero connections there. But I actually, I'm an hour's drive from Atlanta, or I've got family in Charlotte. I think you can start to kind of triangulate the general real estate consensus of, hey, here's where real estate's going in 5 years with, I personally would like to invest in Seattle because my grandparents live in Seattle and I know a realtor I can hit the ground running with. I think there's some personal factors that start to come into play. Totally. But for me, ultimately, once there's a number of markets that are awesome for co-living, but if I didn't have someone I knew could operate it really well, and or I knew I was going to take on and learn from Sam and operate it well, I wouldn't go there. So I think that's why I mentioned those two as being really important.
Thinking about it, my first one, Winston-Salem, right? That wasn't one of the markets that but I had friends that lived there. So I knew worst case scenario, they could help me out. They could go to the property. They could do showings, and all the other stuff I could figure out. But that's a really good point. Someone had mentioned students, right? And always when when CoLiving comes up, everybody thinks the same thing. It's like, oh, what about these college towns? What I found, and I don't know if you guys agree, what I found is like our target demographic is basically people between 30, 25, and 55, right? Like where it's not a ton of students, and a lot of the college towns, they're not looking for co-living type places. They're looking for like places to hang out with other kids and other dorms and things like that. And the price point isn't as good, right? I'd rather have an older person that works, that's responsible, that they have a job. Now, maybe postgraduate or young professionals, those work. But yeah, people are always like, what about college towns? I find that and there's so many other rooms and places and apartments and things in college towns where, yeah, you don't get as high rents. I remember looking in Tuscaloosa, Alabama originally, and outside of the city, the rental prices dropped so much because everybody wanted to be close to the school. So yeah, I would say stick with like older working class demographic.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Well, Seth, I want to honor you for your time. My final question for you is just what is any advice you want to leave this beautiful group of people with? They've been on here. I mean, we say that we do an hour to an hour and a half, but Seth, probably from your 5-day challenge, we're here late some nights. And so they are crushing it. They're hungry investors. They're here. We got a bunch of people who are joining us in this next launch and cohort. So I'm sure, Seth, you'll be getting to know some of them and seeing them in the group. But what advice do you have for maybe someone, who's on the fence about jumping in, getting started, or just is considering this at all?
Yeah, I would say, like, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm naturally wired to be pretty risk averse. I mean, a real estate investment, there's risk there, of course. I know that, but I approach that very diligently, and I'm very risk averse in how I do that. And you look at this, you're on the fence about joining the co-living program. There's two things I would say. One is that having someone who's been through the program, who went through the program, everything that's in the program, knowing what I know now, I would sign up 100 out of 100 times again, because again, could I have figured out like how to do co-living and kind of stumble my way through it? Sure, probably. And I probably would have had some very expensive mistakes along the way that hopefully I would have overcome. Or you can take a blueprint with every system you could possibly ever need for co-living and all the different market nuances and everyone in our group that's helping to think through what about the city regulations here or there and all those things that come with co-living. What about any question you could have for co-living? Sam either has an answer for it or can find that very quickly. That's how we're plugged in, and then we'll have a course module for it tomorrow. That's how it works. So the system is there. The system is there. The other thing I would say is again, I'm risk averse. There's signing up for something like this, right? My wife and I, we thought about it. We made the decision, but there's also a risk of not acting, right? I think that's what people don't always. The other side of that coin is, sticking in a W-2 job or whatever you're trying to escape from with passive income, right? That's what either delaying or putting off by not signing up and moving forward. And so I'm just thinking about both sides of that coin, right? As you make this decision and thinking about it, what makes sense for your family, I would say, one, just trust, like Sam, Corey, the coaches, we're here for you. We're here to help you succeed. We love seeing all of our students, break through and have success and financial freedom. I'm a testimonial of it. I've got 6 co-living properties, and it took me 7 years to have 4 single family homes. And I had 6 co-living properties in 10 months. So I'm a walking testimonial of what this program can do. And I'm also a testimonial of, hey, if I hadn't signed up for this co-living program, my wife and I would not have the passive income now that has allowed her to stop working. I'm part-time just because I still enjoy my job, right? And so I think just think through the other end of that coin if you're weighing one way or the other.
Well, guys, I hope you were able to take away 1 or 2 things about Seth's journey into co-living and how he scaled fast. Look, at the end of the day, whether you join a mentorship program or you get a coach, whatever it takes, you got to get people around you that are helping you, pushing you, giving you the tools and the strategies to succeed. Now, does that mean that someone else is going to do this for you? Probably not. You're going to have to take some action. I mean, even students that are in my Inner Circle program, which is a done for you program, they still have to take the action. They still have to talk to lenders. They still have to go pull the trigger and say, yes, I want this deal. I want to move forward. That's such a key piece to this puzzle. So get out there, get inspired. If you're inspired at all from this video, go take some action and move towards your financial freedom dreams. Will it be perfect? Of course not. Will it be worth it? Of course it will. I'll see you guys on the side. Here's to your financial freedom.